Sumithrayo warmly welcomes all of you here today to help us support World Mental Health Day, which was on the 10th of October. World Mental Health Day is overseen by the World Federation for Mental Health as a day to focus on all aspects of mental health. This year's theme is mental health in an unequal world. The Federation highlights that between 75% and 95% of people in low and middle income countries are unable to access mental health services, while there are inequalities of access in high income countries as well. World Mental Health Day is an excellent opportunity to press decision makers to discuss and take positive action to increase the quality and provision of mental health. So let's all join hands to make this happen. We also warmly welcome our guest speaker, Professor Pianjali D'Souza, professor at the Department of Psychiatry in the Faculty of Medicine of the University of Colombo. Our topic today is a very interesting one, Taming Your Anger. This is the third in the series of 4 webinars organized by Sumithrayo during the month of October to support World Mental Health Day. So a quick review about Sumithrayo, which was founded 47 years ago and was the first suicide prevention crisis center in Sri Lanka. At Sumithrayo, barriers such as class, race, and religion, political or sexual leanings are non-existent. Every caller will be provided with emotional support in an atmosphere of total confidentiality. The service provided is completely free. Devoted to responding to people in crisis and preventing suicide, focusing on empathetic, active listening and non-judgmental responses, Sumithrayo volunteers endeavor to take every person in crisis seriously. The goal of their befriending is to empower the caller to make life-enhancing choices. Our mission is to help people choose to live and not choose to die. The center is open 365 days of the year. Presently, due to the situation in the country, we are only able to take telephone calls and answer emails. Please feel free to ask questions by clicking the Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen. All questions will be answered after Professor Pianjali D'Souza completes her presentation. So over to you, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamal. Thank you, Sumithrayo, for inviting me. Suba dawasak sama denatama. So I'll just share my slide, Jamal.
Okay.
Is it clear?
It's very clear.
Okay. All right. Oh, so today we are going to talk about a topic that many of us prefer not to talk about. අපේ ජීවිතේ බොහෝ දේවල් තියෙනවානේ අපි බොහෝ දෙනෙකුට දැනෙන හැඟෙන නමුත් ඒ ගැන අපි කතා කරන්නේ නැහැ වැඩිපුර. One of such a topic is anger. තරහ යෑම, කෝපය, ඒ මාතෘකාවන් ගැන අපි වැඩි කතා කරන්නේ නැහැ. අපි කතා කරන අවශ්‍ය topic එක. එහෙමනම් let's see, the first thing I want to talk to you about is, now, is anger so bad? I remember many years ago, not many years, maybe in 2018, මට වවුනියාවට යන්න තිබුණා program එකක් කරන්න for a group of community level workers. එතනදී I was doing a program on anger management so that these community level workers මේ මං කියපු දේවල් ඉගෙනගෙන ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ප්‍රජාවට ගිහිල්ලා මේ තරහ පාලනය කරගන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා ප්‍රජාවගේ අයට දැනුම් දෙන්න. ඒ වැඩමුළුවක් කරේ, training of trainers. I saw while I was talking 2 young men in a corner looking exceedingly angry at me for talking about anger management. So at the Q&A, I asked them, and they were very upset. They said, කොහොමද මේ තරහ වෙච්ච නරකයි කියලා කියන්නේ? තරහව දැනීමෙන් අපිට බොහෝ දේවල් ජීවිතේට ළඟා කරගන්න පුළුවන්. So basically they thought that anger was a fantastic thing and that it will get you to all your goals. Is that really true? Is the question here. Some people do tend to think that anger is a fantastic thing. That අපි තරහ යන්නට ඕනේ. හැමතිස්සෙම නැති වුණා සුදුසු අවස්ථාවලදී අපේ තරහව අපි පෙන්වන්න ඕනේ කියලා වැරදි මත තියෙනවා සමාජයේ. What the මම කියන්නේ වැරදි මතයක් කියලා. And you will see why I say it's වැරදි මතයක්. What are the reasons that people like anger? Some people, not everybody, is because anger makes you feel powerful. It's like a blood rush to your brain, and you feel really powerful. You feel like the lion of the jungle kind of a thing. And ඒ මොහොතේදී අපි කියන බොහෝම සෑහෙන පුෂ්ටිමත් පුද්ගලයෙක් කියලා අපි හිතනවා. ඒ මොහොතේ certain times anger also makes you get what you want. අපි දැකලා තියෙනවා පොඩි දරුවන් පවා කකුල බිම ගහලා they storm their food, or you have adults who will just come and have a temper tantrum, throw things here and there, and others are so afraid, especially if that person is in a position of authority. අනිත් අය මෙයාට ඕන දේ සාදු සාදු කියලා දෙනවා. ඉතින් මේ හේතුන් නිසා බොහෝ අය හිතනවා යම්කිසි අවස්ථාවක හැමදාමත් නැති වුණාට මේ තරහව කියන එක යම්කිසි වටිනාකමක් තියෙන දෙයක් කියලා. But is it actually so? Let us look at the other side of anger, because in every story there is two things and we need to take a balanced position on it. පළවෙනි එක තමයි මේ තරහ යෑම අනිත් අය අපි දිහා බලන්නේ ඍණාත්මක විදියට. We know that we look at people who in your life who gets angry. Do you think they're fantastic people? They may be having fantastic streaks to them, but overall you have a little bit of an undervaluation of them. I remember Mama විශ්වවිද්‍යාල පද්ධතියට එකතු වෙන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා මම පෞද්ගලික ආයතනයක in human resources I worked for a few years, and I was a management trainee, very much junior in the rank, and I had to organize a trip to Goa. මේ trip එක යන ගමන් මගේ senior officer කෙනෙකුත් මම දාගෙන යන්නේ වාහනේට. So I told the senior officer I will come at 10 o'clock in the morning. නමුත් අර van එක පරක්කු වුන නිසා I was able to get to his house only at 11, and it didn't make a difference 10 or 11 because the workshop was happening the next day, and we could have got to Goa in 2 hours and rested and relaxed and had fun. And this senior officer usually සාමාන්‍ය බොහොම සාමකාමී මට බොහෝසෙන් උදව් කරපු පුද්ගලයෙක් බොහෝසෙන්. නමුත් එදා එයාගේ ගෙදරට ගියාම එයාට ගිය තරහව මලත් එක්ක. ඒක කතා කරගන්නත් බැරි වුණා. එච්චර තරහ ගිහිල්ලා. යන ගමන්ම වාහනේ මට බැන්නා. මට මොනවා කෑවද කොහොමද නිින්ද ගියේ මොනවද කරේ කියලා මුළු සතිය අන්තිම අමතකයි. එයාට ඇති වුණ බයට. Now this happened in 1996, about 25-26 years ago. තාමත් ඒ පුද්ගලයා මයිත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධකම් තියෙනවා. He contacts me. I mean, you know, I have respect for him, but every time I see his name on my phone, මට මතක් වෙන්නේ incident. Some part of me died in my relationship to him that day. අපිට ඒක වෙලා තියෙනවා. එහෙමනම් අපි තරහ ගියාම අනිත් අය අපි දිහා බලන විදිය විකෘති වෙනවා. ඒකට හේතුව අපි නිසා. Then another reason is that guilt is a large consequence of anger. අපි තරහ ගිහලා අපි කියලා බලනකොට අපි හිතනවා නම් අර වචනේ භාවිතා කරපු සුදුසු නෑ. Why did I hit that person? Why did I scowl at that person? At the supermarket when I scolded the cashier, was it truly just a poor little girl who was trying to make a living? We feel guilt. පසුතැවීමෙන් and තරහවත් එක්ක එන බොහොම දරුණු deep seated හැඟීමක් තමයි පසුතැවීම or guilt, which you will have to live with you for the rest of your life. තුන්වෙනි හේතුව තමයි මේ තරහව අපි ඍණාත්මකයි කියන්නේ අපිට නුවණින් සහිත ප්‍රඥාවෙන් තීරණ ගන්න බැහැ තරහව ආවහම. මොකද තරහව ආවහම it clouds your mind. It doesn't make you see the truth. අපි සාමාන්‍යයෙන් යථාර්ථය දකින්නේ සාමාන්‍ය නෙවෙයි යථාර්ථය දකින්නේ අපේ මනස බොහොම සාමකාමී තත්ත්වයක තියෙනකොට. When your mind is calm and tranquil. Anger is the opposite of calmness and tranquility. So when anger comes to you, you can't make a proper judgment. So you make all sorts of very unwholesome negative judgments, and that will lead to further problems in your life. Anger will also be in the way of your success. අපි දන්නවා බොහෝ ආයතනවල කොච්චර උපාධි තිබුණත් යම්කිසි කෙනෙකුට bachelor's එකක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්, master's එකක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්, doctorate එකක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්, බුද්ධිය තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් මෙයාගේ ඉන්න තරහ යන දේ නිසා එයාට ප්‍රොමෝෂන්ස් එයාට අවස්ථා ලැබෙන ප්‍රමාණය අඩු වෙනවා. මොකද කට්ටිය දන්නවා මෙයා කොච්චර මොලයක් තිබුණාද. මෙයා කොහේ මීටිමකට ගියොත් තරහ ගියොත් විනාශයි වැඩේ කියලා. So basically anger gets in the way of their success. And of course we do know that chronic anger තරහ යන ස්වභාවය දීර්ඝ කාලයක් පවත්වාගෙන ගියොත් that will lead to many medical conditions for you. For instance, high blood pressure, heart disease, certain types of cancers, හමේ රෝග වගේ දේවල් තරහවත් එක්ක ලොකු සම්බන්ධයක් තියෙනවා. ඒකට හේතුව මොකද්ද? 75ක් වගේ අපේ මනසේ ඇතිවෙන හැඟීම් සසිතුවිලි අපේ ශරීරයට බලපාන බව. We know that when somebody gets angry, the entire face gets distorted and contorted. Even when we get angry, have you noticed how your neck, your back, everything gets so tensed up? You definitely don't look beautiful, do you? So ඒකෙන් අපිට පේනවා මේ තරහව ආවම කොතරම් දරුණුවට අපේ ශරීරයට බලපානවද කියලා. And of course, finally, you can't be happy when you're angry. Has anybody who's angry said that they feel happy? No, it cannot coexist. They are two opposites of emotions. එහෙමනම් මම ඔබගෙන් ආරාධනා කරන්නේ. ඔබ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් තරහ යන පුද්ගලයෙක් නම් තරහව පාලනය කරන්න හිතුවේ නැති පුද්ගලයෙක් නම් තරහට යම්කිසි වටිනාකමක් දීලා තියෙනවා නම් kindly consider both sides of the coin and come to a decision whether your anger needs to be tamed in order to heal yourself. Now, of course, anger is an inherent human emotion. අපි සෑම කෙනාටම තරහව දැනෙන අවස්ථා තියෙනවා. ඒ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් තරහව නැති වෙන්න නම් ඒ තරහව කියන මුලම අපි පුහුණු කරන්න. ඒ පුහුණු කරන යන ගමනේ there are different people with different levels of anger. You see, for example, sometimes when you go on the road, there can be a traffic block, and then suddenly it turns green. Then somebody in front of you doesn't start their car just in time. අන්න තව කෙනෙක් හෝන් ගාලා හෝන් ගන්නවා. But another person will just let it be until that person starts the car and moves on. It doesn't matter, it's not a big thing in life. So that will show that there are different people whose anger varies. So my anger may not be as much as your anger, or would be more than your anger. Also, our anger varies across our lifespan. I remember when I was in my 20s, not when I was in my teenage years, but when I was in my early 20s, I had quite a huge anger problem. And at that time, even though I was studying psychology, I used to think that anger served a purpose. I remember once when I was in India and I had to buy a plane ticket to come to Sri Lanka in emergency. At that time, there were no emails, there were no e-tickets. We had to actually go to the travel agency. And I went just in time for the lunch break because they used to close the door at 12 o'clock for their lunch break. And they were just about to close the door, but it was 11:55 kind of thing. Technically, I could go inside. And the anger outburst I had was enormous. Everybody was so shocked. At that time, I felt the surge of power of anger and I netted it out. But looking back now, I feel so ashamed that I behaved that way. And I'm so much different, fortunately, than what I was then. එහෙමනම් අපේ ජීවිත කාලය බැලුවොත් පුද්ගලයානෝ එයාගේ තරහ යන ප්‍රමාණය වැඩි වෙනවා අඩු වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. Depending on how much of self development work you've done. අපි දන්නවා සමහර අය ඉන්නවා පොඩි කාලේදී අවුරුදු 20 ගණන් වල 30 ගණන් වල බොහොම සාමකාමී චරිත. බොහොම කාම් එකේ ඉන්න තරහව කියනව බොහොම සුළුවට දැනෙන්නේ. නමුත් පසුව අවුරුදු 40 50 දී මෙයාට තරහ යනවා ගොඩක්. එයාගේ ජීවිත හේතු නිසා මේ වගේ දෙයක් වෙනවා. එහෙනම් there are variations in anger also. තරහවට හේතු තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. අපි බලන්න ඕනේ ඇයි මිනිස්සුන්ට මේ තරහ යන්නේ? මොකද අපි කිව්වා පුද්ගලයාට තරහ වෙනස් වෙනවා සහ පුද්ගලයා තුලත් එයාගේ ජීවිතයේ ඇති වෙන සිද්ධීන් නිසා හෝ because of certain life changes they might get more angry than before or after. So one of the biggest reasons that somebody can get angry is because of stress. අපි දන්නවා අපේ ජීවිතයේ ගැටලු ආවහම අපේ ජීවිතයේ පීඩනයක් ගන්නවහම අපිට තරහව දැනෙන ප්‍රමාණය වැඩි. දැන් අපේ ජීවිතේ බොහොම සතුටින් යනවා නම් සාමකාමීව යනවා නම් ප්‍රශ්න බොහොම අඩු නම් අපිට සාමාන්‍යයෙන් තරහ යන අවස්ථාවකදී පව we are okay. ඒකනේ අපේ යාළුවෙක් කිව්වහම you know I feel so angry if things are going okay you say ayyo don't take it so seriously things will be okay but ඔයාගේ ජීවිතේ okay නේ. So therefore stress, external stressors can make you more angry because your tolerance level is challenged. තව හේතුවක් තමයි අපි තරහ යන මනුස්සයා අපිට අනිත් කෙනෙක්ව පාලනය කරගන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙනවා. Because I talked about this earlier also, because by showing anger, we can make a person who's less powerful than you, scared. Then සමහරට අපි සමහරක අපෝ මම මට තරහව පෙන්වන්නේ නැත්තම් මෙයාගේ මට වැඩක් කරන්න බෑ. නැත්තම් මම මෝඩයෙක් කියලා හිතන්නේ. එහෙනම් අර පුද්ගලයාගෙන් කොහෙන් හරි වැඩක් කරගන්න අපි මෙතන බොරුවට හරි තරහවක් වෙනවා. That's another reason people actually put on anger. The third reason is when there is injustice. So something could happen far away in Mongolia, but that really makes you feel it's injustice happening and you have Udghoshana in Sri Lanka. But the real issue is in Mongolia. And in your Udghoshana here or your mod behavior, you pellet stones or you throw stones and break other people's windows because you're having your mob for injustice that happened in Mongolia. Nothing maybe to do with you, even to somebody else, it's injustice. ඒ නිසා තමයි සමහර අවස්ථාවලදී අපි දැකලා තියෙනවා කිසිසේත්ම සම්බන්ධයක් නැති අය they become part of social movements or pickets or strikes. It's nothing to do with them, but they feel that injustice has happened to somebody and they do a protest or a strike and then later on that becomes a riot and their anger is totally out of control and they can be very destructive. We have seen that in the history of our country also. හතරවෙනි හේතුව තමයි සමහර අය තරහ යන්නේ එයාට ගෞරවය ලැබුණ නැහැ කියලා හිතුවා. දැන් සමහර අය ඉන්නවා මට මතකයි මගේ තාත්තගේ මිත්‍රයෙක්, so he is actually like my father's age, who was, you know, I had known him since I was a child, and once I started doing a job, I had to write a letter to this uncle. So because I had studied abroad, I wasn't really well versed with writing as dear sir, madam. So I was more used to writing Mr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, or Mr. Pereira, or whoever. So I wrote this letter to this uncle as Mr. You know, so Amarasinghe, or whatever his name is. So he called me and said, how dare you call me Mr. Amarasinghe? Either you call me uncle or you call me sir, but you cannot call me Amarasinghe. Then I realized his anger was because he felt I didn't respect him. So either I was back to my little girl self calling him uncle, which was not proper to write on a formal letter. If not, I had to call him sir, and I didn't. So they went තරහ ගියා. එහෙනම් සමහර අවස්ථාවලදී අපිට යම්කිසි කෙනෙක් ගරුත්වයක් දුන්නේ නැති වුණාම අපිට නම්බුවක් දෙන්නේ නැති වුණාම අපි යම්කිසි තැනක තිබ්බේ නැති වුණාම ඒ හේතුවෙන් අපිට තරහ යන්නට පුළුවන්. සමහර හිතනවා මම අර ඉස්සර කිව්ව උදාහරණය වගේ වවුනියාවේ ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑම් එක කරනකොට සමහර අය හිතනවා මේ තරහ යන එක ඒක අපි පෙන්වන්න ඕනේ. ඒක තද කරගෙන ඉන්න බෑ. තද කරගෙන හිටියොත් මට ලඩක් හැදෙයි. ඒ නිසා තරහ ගිය වෙලාවේ බස් කාලෙක පිට කරන්න. ඒක වැරදි අදහසක්. තද කරගෙන ඉන්න එකත් වැරදි අදහසක්. එහෙනම් අපි තරහ දැනෙන මනුස්සයන් වශයෙන්, however there are ways in which we can mediate it rather than suppressing it or rather than expressing it. And තව හේතුවක් තමයි if you are exposed to constant anger for a long period of time, you will think that anger is okay. දැන් අපි දැකලා තියෙනවා සමහර පෞල් පද්ධතිවල පරම්පරාවෙන් පරම්පරාවට තමාගේ තාත්තා තමාගේ කියන්නේ කාන්තාවට පිරිමි කෙනා ගහනවා. ඒක දකින්නට පොඩි ළමයි ටික. ඉතින් ඒ පොඩි ළමයා පිරිමි ළමයෙක් ලොකු වුණාම එයාගේ බිරිඳට ගහනවා, පෙම්වතියට ගහනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ළමයි දැක්කම ඒක එහෙම වෙනවා. එහෙනම් මොකද්ද මෙතන වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? යම් කිසි කෙනෙක් if they are born into a family or even born into a community which is very violent, where anger is the way to go, they think it is normal because why? As a child, that's what they have seen very commonly. I remember I had gone to South Africa about 10 years ago, and I really want to go and see the various townships that the African community lives in, where there are white Africans and black Africans, where the black Africans live in. එතකොට tours තිබුණා, township tours. ඉතින් මම හිතුවේ ඇයි මේ ගමනකට යන tour එකක් ඕනේ නැහැනේ, අපිට ඇවිදගෙන යන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට මේ කට්ටිය කිව්වා නැහැ. Yeah, if you are not an African, like a black African, town එකකට ගියයි කියන either ඔයාව මරනවා එතන නැත්නම් කාන්තාවකන් දූෂණය කළා දානවා. බොහොම භයානක බොහොම violence තියෙන තැන් තමයි මේ townships. ඒක සාමාන්‍ය වෙලා ඉතින්. එම නිසා තමයි tour එකක් හැටින් guards එක්ක ගෙනියන්නේ මේ තැන් බලන්න කියන්නේ. So that means if you are born into a community or a neighborhood or a village where everybody sort of කැති පොළු අරගෙන පරුස වචනෙන් බැනගෙන කෑ ගහගෙන ඉන්න තැනකට ආවනම් ඔබ හිතනවා මේක තමයි සාමාන්‍ය. එහෙනම් ඒ ළමයෙක් වැඩිහිටියපත් වුණාම එයා සමාජගත වුණාම එයා සම්බන්ධ වෙන අනිත් පැත්තට කෑකෝ ගහනවා. So these are the reasons that people get angry. Now the most important thing is, how do we manage our anger? Now මට හිතනවා මෙතන සම්බන්ධ වෙන හැම කෙනෙක්, I think we have about 82 participants, and that's fantastic. Me and my co-hosts were saying that it's a long weekend, and they're very delighted that we have 82 people despite a long weekend. And that means that all of you came here is interested to further manage your anger. So the first thing in anger management is to want to manage it. You see, අපිට කොච්චර කෙනෙකුට අපි ඔළුවෙන් හිටගෙන කිව්වත් කාට හරි ඒ පුද්ගලයා එයාගේ තරහව පාලනය කරගන්නේ නැහැ. එයාට පාලනය කරගන්න ඕන බව තදින් දැනුන්නේ නැත්තම්. Now there are people in our life, it can be your partner, it can be your child, it can be your parent, it can be a friend, it can be a neighbor. තරහ යනවා අන්තිම. කතා කරනකොට නිකන් අසභ්‍ය වචනමයි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. කෑ ගහලම, ඒ කියන්නේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කතා කරනකොට වොලියුම් එක high. අපි යාර කොච්චර කිව්වත් අනේ මේ මොකද මේක හරිය අසභ්‍යයි, මේක කැතයි, ඔයාට හොඳ නෑ, අනිත්යට හොඳ නෑ, එහෙමයි යන්නේ. But one fine day, because of some experience or the other, මෙයාටම වැටහෙනවා අනේ ඇයි මගේ ජීවිතේ මම මෙහෙම ගත කරන්නේ, ඇයි මම මේ කෑ ගහලා බැනලා වැඳලා කකුල් පර්ණාම් කරලා පොළවේ මේව කඩලා ඇයි මම මෙහෙම ඉන්නේ, වෙන දෙතියට ජීවත් වෙන විදියක් නැද්ද? And එදා තමයි ඒ මනුස්සයා වෙනස් වෙන්නේ. So therefore, we can try to tell people in our life who have anger issues, and you may be also impacted because of their anger, but they need to want to change it. Only then, that's, I think, really 50% of the job done. The need to want to change. I told you when I was in my early 20s, I didn't think I need to change my anger. Of course, unfortunately, at that time in psychology degree, there was nothing like these topics that we were taught in. As I got older, still in my 20s, and I became 25, 26, I think 26 was a very definitive time for me in my own life, where one particular outburst of anger that I had realized made me realize that this is not the Pianjali I want to be. And I really started doing work on myself, knowing all the psychology knowledge and spiritual knowledge I have to be the kind of person I am. So that doesn't mean that I'm anger-free, which would mean that I'm enlightened, which I'm not, but I'm so much less angry. So the need to change has to come from within. So let us say you do need to change. You know you need to change. And of course, that's why you're here with us, isn't it? And of course, Sumithrayo is recording this, I believe, and it will be on their website, I'm sure. You can come back to this talk later on or share it with other people and practice this session, these techniques on yourself so that you become this best version of yourself that you are proud of. So the first techniques, the first one is, of course, knowing that you want to change and you really want to change. The second technique of managing anger is living in the present moment. ඔබ දැකලා ඇති මම මේක රතු පාටින් highlight කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒකට හේතුව මේ සිහියෙන් ජීවත් වෙන එක තරම් තමාගේ ඍණාත්මක හැඟීම් තරහ වගේ පාලනය කරගන්න තව විදියක් නැහැ සිහියෙන් ඉන්නවා තරම් දුරට. මම අනිත් ටෙක්නික්ස් වලට කියනවා. නමුත් මේ සිහියෙන් ඉන්නවයි කියන එක බොහොම ප්‍රබල ක්‍රමවේදයක් තමාගේ මානසික සෞඛ්‍ය දියුණු කරන්න. තරහව අඩු කිරීම විතරක් නෙවෙයි වෙන මානසික සෞඛ්‍ය වාසිත් තියනවා සිහියෙන් ජීවත් වෙනවා කියන එකෙන්. So what is living in the present moment? සමහර අය මේකට කියනවා mindfulness කියලා. ඔබට පුළුවන් Google වගේ web අඩවියකට ගිහිල්ලා mindfulness living in the present moment ආදී වශයෙන් ටිකක් search කරලා බලන්න මේක මොකද්ද කරන්නේ. මම කෙටියෙන් ඔබට පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් කරන්න. මේ සිහියෙන් ඉන්නවා කියන්නේ අපි කරන ඕනෑම කාර්යයක් ශරීරයෙන් කරන ඕනෑම කාර්යයක් මත අපේ මනස තියාගෙන කිරීම අවබෝධයෙන් කිරීම බලෙන් තියාගන්න එක නෙවෙයි මනස ඒක ටිකක් හද කරගෙන ඉන්නවා කියන මනස උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් කියමු අපි ඇවිදිනවා නැත්නම් අපි දවල් කෑමකට හදන්න වැටකුළු කපනවා දැන් මේ ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑම් එකෙන් පස්සේ තේ එකක් හදාගන්න යනවා නාගන්න යනවා ඔළුව හොදන්න යනවා නැත්නම් ඇඳුම් ඉස්ත්‍රි කරන්න යනවා නැත්නම් තමාගේ දරුවාගේ හෝම්වර්ක් එකක් කරන්න උදව් කරන්න යනවා නැත්නම් මේ වෙබිනාර් එක අහගෙන ඉන්නවා ඒ වගේ සාමාන්‍ය ජීවිතේ කරන වැඩ කටයුතු බොහෝ විට අපි යම් වැඩ කටයුත්තක් කරනකොට අපේ මනස split වෙලා it goes here and there so we may be cutting the වැටකොළු but thinking of what a cup of tea we are going to have or the meeting you are going to have at 4 and how you are going to blast your boss so that he will be ruined. You may be having a head wash in your bathroom, but you're thinking of all the scenarios the politicians are doing in our country. Or you might be talking to a child and thinking of all the price hikes of essential goods in our country. Now what happens is, ape manasa eliyata gihama මේ කරන ක්‍රියාවේ මනස එළියට ගියාම වෙන්නේ අපේ මනස බොහෝසෙන් විකෘති වෙනවා. විකෘති වෙනවා කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? ඍණාත්මක හැඟීම් සිතුවිලි අපේ මනසට ඇතුළට එන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් මේ බාත් รู ම් එකට ගියේ ඔළුව හොදන්න. හැබැයි හිතන්නේ අනේ මේ බඩු වැඩි වුණා මෙහෙක් වුණා අයියෝ බඩුවක් හිඟතාවයක් තියෙනවා කියලා දැන් බාත් รู ම් එකෙන් එළියට එනකොට දුම් දාගෙන එන්නේ මොකද සබන් ගෑවද කියලාත් මතක නැහැ. මොකද අර ප්‍රයිස් හයික් එක ගැන හිතේ තිබු නිසා ප්‍රයිස් හයික් එකක් වුණා. මොකද අපි ගියේ බාත් รู ම් එකට ඔළුව හොදන්නේ. ඔළුව හොදුවද කියලා දන්නෙත් නෑ. වැරදි ෂැම්පූ එකක් දැම්මත් සමහර විම් දාලත් හොදන්නේ නැති. මොකද අර ගැන හිතේ තිබු නිසා. present moment එකේ ඉන්න පුද්ගලෙක් එහෙම නෙවෙයි. he works, he keeps his mind parallel with the activity he's doing. මම උපමාවක් කියන්නම්. අපේ ගෙදර තියෙනවානේ පොත් රාක්කි. ඒ පොත් රාක් වල හැම රාක්කයකම අපි පොතක් තියෙනවා. ඒ තමයි මේ පොත දරාගෙන ඉන්නේ. නැත්තම් රාක්කය නැත්තම් පොතට ඉන්න තැනක් නැහැ. ඒ වැටෙනවා. එහෙනම් මගේ උපමාවේ පොත කියන්නේ අපේ මනස. රාක්කය කියන්නේ අපි කරන ක්‍රියාවලිය. එහෙනම් අපේ මනස පොත කියන මනස අපි ඒ වෙලාවේදී කරන ක්‍රියාවලිය කියන රාක්කය මත තියාගන්න. එහෙම තියාගන්නකොට අපේ මනසයි ශරීරයයි එකට තමයි යන්නේ. ඒතර ඔබට දැකීම එහෙම කරනකොට ඔබගේ මනස සෑහෙන අයාලේ යනවා. වැටකොළු නෙවෙයි වැටකොළු හදන අම්මා ගැනත් හිතනවා. මොකද එච්චර මනස යනවා මොකද පුහුණු වෙලා නැහැ මෙතන. කමක් නෑ ඒක. මොකද ඔබ තාම පුහුණු වෙමින් ඉන්න පුද්ගලයෙක්. So what do you do? Whenever your mind wanders away from the activity you're doing, either to the past, it can wander, it can go to the future, it can go to some random planning, some TV show you had been watching, some various random oddball things. The moment it has gone away, very gently, බොහොම කාරුණිකව, තදින් ගන්න එපා, but බොහොම කාරුණිකව bring your mind back to the activity you're doing. එහෙම පුහුණු කරනකොට ඔබට දැනගන්නේ දකි ඔබගේ මනසට the feelings of anger, the feelings of unhappiness, the feelings of sadness, the feelings of restlessness, the feelings of disgust. ඒ හැම emotion එකක් අපේ මනසට ඇවිල්ලා ග්‍රහණය කරන ප්‍රමාණය අඩු වෙනවා. So what happens is all unwholesome, negative, difficult emotions that we are always constantly grappling with, the ability for it to come and overtake your mind gets lesser and lesser. So that's what present moment awareness is. Kindly think of practicing. The second strategy of anger management is to see what is really behind your anger. බොහෝ විට අපි තරහ යන්නේ is actually not a තරහව. It's something else. It's sadness, it could be. For example, your child is going overseas. You're really sad. You're so sad. Then the helper in your home, whom you generally treat very well, slightly burns a dal curry. හිතලා බලනකොට ඇත්තට මේ තියෙන්නේ අර කාන්තාවත් එක්ක තරහවක් නෙවෙයි. මේ තමාගේ ළමයා රට යන නිසා දුකට තියෙන ස්ට්‍රෙස් එකෙන් නිසා තමයි තරහ. So take a moment on all these occasions where you have got angry to analyze. Is it actually anger or is there something more behind it? Then treat that behind it. Okay, මගේ පුතා රට යනවා මම ඒව අවුරුදු දෙකක් දකින්න නැති වෙනවා. I feel so sad. එහෙනම් මේ එයා ඉතිරි දවස් ටිකේ ඉන්න කාලේ මම එයාට බොහොම කාරුණිකව ආදරෙන් සලකනවා. ඒක නේද රෙමඩි? අර හේල්පර් බැන බැන ඉන්න එක නෙවෙයි. So think for yourself. Is it anger or is it something else? The third way of managing anger is recognizing your personal warning signs. Now you will realize මේක බොහොම සිහියෙන් ඉන්න කෙනෙකුට තමයි මේක දැනගන්නේ. එහෙනම් මේ සිහියෙන් ඉන්න එක, living in the present moment is essential for all these other strategies also. What are the personal warning signs that you have? Usually for me, when I get angry, I feel my jaws here gets really clenched. That's a personal warning sign for me. But for others, it could be different. සමහරවිට තරහ ගියාම they see like a blood is rushing to their head. සමහර අය තරහ ගියාම එයා දන්නේත් නෑ, they keep pacing up and down. Some people say when I get angry I can really feel the pounding of my heart. There may warning signs අපි සිහියෙන් ඉන්න අවස්ථාවකදී තරහව දරුණුවට ආවේ නැති වුණත් still we will be able to detect these warning signs because why? You're living in the present moment and you're very aware of the functioning of your mind, of your body. For example, I know I have been practicing present moment awareness as my lifestyle for about 17 years now. I know that at the beginnings of anger, I can feel this entire thing getting tight at the beginnings. If sometimes I don't even feel the anger, but I can feel the clenching of the jaw. Now that for me is a warning sign that I'm going to get angry. I might make a fool of myself and I don't want to make a fool of myself. I don't want to be this person. I need to get my act together. So I might leave that place, or if I still can't leave that place, I make a conscious effort to talk really nice to the person I might get angry at so that I manage the situation very wisely. හතරවෙනි ක්‍රමවේදය තමයි in order to manage your anger is to identify triggers. The warning signs කියන්නේ අපේ ශරීරයෙන් අපිට දෙන red light එක. දැන් උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් අපි කියමු අපේ ශරීරයේ රෝගී තත්ත්වයක් තියෙනවා නම් one of the indicators that our body tells us that we have an illness is to give a pain or some kind of a shooting pain. Then we go take ourselves to the doctor. Likewise, clenched jaw, pacing up and down, pounding heart are indicators to you that you're getting the sickness of anger coming to you. Similarly, අපේ ජීවිතයේ එළියෙන් එන දේවල් අපිට තරහව ඇති කරන්න පුළුවන්. For example, certain people who when you see them තරහ යනවා. දැන් සමහර අය කියන අනේ එයාව එයාගේ නම අහනකොට මට තරහ යනවා. එයා කට අරින්න ඕනේ නැහැ. In fact, that person might talk to you in the kindest way. But එයා දැක්කහම ගහන්න කම්බුවට එකක්. That happens. There can be reasons for this. Maybe your past with that person was not very nice. Maybe that person didn't treat you well when you were a child, you know, or they really hit you. Sometimes children, adult children have that for their parents. The parent may now have become a very gentle, kind person, but in childhood, the parent may have hit them, scolded them, ridiculed them, humiliated them, and the child remembers that in the memory. And when they see that elderly parent, other emotions activate from the subconscious mind. So therefore, another thing would be menstruation. If you are female and if you have a menstrual cycle, nearing menstruation, you may be more prone to anger. That is a biological reason because of hormonal changes in your system. එහෙමනම් ඔබ නිතරම හොදිසියෙන් ඉන්න මොන අවස්ථාවලද මට බලන්න. දැන් මම දන්නවා මගේ පද්ධතියේ ඉන්න කට්ටියගේ මොන අයත් එක්කද මට හේතු රහිතව තරහ යන්නේ කියලා. ඉතින් ඒ අයව මම සාමාන්‍යයෙන් පොඩි අපහසුතාවයක ඉන්නකොට ඒ අයව හම්බ වෙන්න යන එක මම අඩු කරනවා. මොකද මට නිකන් කබලෙන් ඉබට වැටෙන්න බෑනේ මෙතන. Likewise, if you, for example, are not particularly fond of a sibling, if you're particularly not fond of a friend in your friend circle, if you're particularly not fond of a relative, and you yourself are going through some personal challenges, you're not feeling too great. අර පුද්ගලයා හම්බුනා තාත් අදගෙන. ඒ නිසා එයාව avoid කරා until you feel better. If you have menstruation issues where you do get very angry, that can happen to a lot of females, then you know, මගේ menstruation එකගේ period එක පටන් ගන්න වගේ එන්නේ දැන් මට තරහ යන්නේ බොහෝම මම සීරුවෙන් ඉන්න ඕනේ. මොකද මේකට හේතුව මගේ මේ හෝමෝන වෙනස් වීමක් නිසා. මම බොහොම මානසිකාරයෙන් ඉන්න ඕනේ, සිහියෙන් ඉන්න ඕනේ. තරහ පිට නොකර ඉන්න. මොකද තරහව පිට කරොත් consequences are far worse. Then, of course, walking away from the source of anger, easier said than done, but it can be done if you train yourself. So, in the event that you need these triggers, then සමහර අය ඉන්නවා අපිට අපි පාර්ටියකට යනවා, දාන ගෙදරකට යනවා, පල්ලියේ මොකක් හරි organize කරපු event එකකට යනවා. එතනට ගියාම සමහර අය ඇවිල්ලා අපිට බොහොම හිත රිදෙන දේවල් කියනවා. එයාත් එක්ක දැන් මෙයා බලෙන් අපිත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න බලනවා. One of the tactics that I do is I say I need to go to the washroom. And then I leave that person because I know that person is triggering me so much. I don't want to be nasty to that person. I don't want to express certain words or even show on my face I'm annoyed. So I leave that place so that I won't create another bunch of problems for myself if I do show anger to them. So walking away from the source of anger is a very good strategy to overcome the issues you will have if you do show your anger. So my thing is, I always say, I had to go to the washroom, excuse me, or I happen to take a phone call. That way, එයාට හිතට දෙන්නෙත් නෑ, මගේ තරහව ඇවිස්ස වෙලා අනවශ්‍ය වචන භාවිතා වෙන්නෙත් නෑ. The sixth strategy of managing anger is what we call box breathing. Now we do know, I think I told you earlier also, our body and our mind is very intimately connected. That is why I said things like blood pressure, heart diseases, certain skin disorders, certain kinds of cancers can arise in our body because of our functioning of our mind. උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් අපි දන්නවා type A කියලා personality tendency, type A කියලා personality type එකක් තියෙනවා. සමහර පුද්ගලයන් අපි කියනවා මෙයා type A කියලා. Type A කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? A person who is very irritable, who is highly ambitious, who is very hostile, who is very competitive, who is busy. All of these, when they put together, we call them a type A personality. The type A personality පුද්ගලයාට heart attacks, blood pressure වැඩි වෙන එක ප්‍රවණතාවය වැඩි type A නුවණ පුද්ගලයෙකුට වඩා. එහෙනම් අපිට පේනවා our mind or our personality can really give rise to disease. එහෙමනම් what if when we get angry, we control our body? Then we can also control our mind, isn't it? It's a reverse. One way of managing our body in order to manage our mind is what we call box breathing. Box එකක් කියන හරි හතරස් පෙට්ටියක් කියන එකනේ. හරි හතරස් පෙට්ටියක size හතරක් තියෙනවා. Box breathing කියන්නේ මොකද්ද? අපි හුස්ම උඩට ගන්නකොට අපි මනසින් count කරනවා 1 2 3 4. Then we retain the breath for 4 counts 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we put the breath down, we exhale, again to a count of 4, measure in the mind, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we stay without the breath, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, then of course you probably die off. Or you don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, you will have no oxygen in your body. So it should be a nice beat to it. And you practice like this, maybe 10 times, 15 times, or as many times as you want. When you see your anger or even your restlessness is arising in you. When you do this breathing, the body compositions change, which affects your emotion. So these are 6 techniques. The 7th technique that we could use in order to manage our anger is to realize the impact it has on our relationships. You see, I told you when I was about 26, I had a particular incident with a very, very person I'm very fond of and I'm very close to, which the anger outburst I had really destroyed that relationship. And that day I realized that it's really pointless giving rise to these very dark emotions. What's really important is our relationships. Relationships priority in our life, because we live such a short while and very short time in this planet Earth, and very few people who are really good and kind comes to our life, and we don't want to lose them. So why do we want to lose them? Because of some anger. So think to yourself, if your anger is really shown in your relationships, usually we show anger to people who are closest to us. අපි මේ කිට්ටුයි කියලා ඉන්න අපිව බලා ගන්න අපි එක ඉන්න අයත් එක්ක තමයි බොහෝ විට තරහ යන්නේ. So reflect on, do you want to destroy your relationships? Do you want to be remembered as a spouse or a father who scolded the children or the wife? Do you want to be remembered as a boss or a team member who used to have temper tantrums and say awful words to everybody and pass hints and write anonymous letters? Or do you want to be remembered differently in your relationships? If you want to be remembered differently, how would you conduct your relationships without anger? එක විදියක් තමයි අපි සම්බන්ධකම් පවත්වාගෙන යනකොට අපි බොහෝ විට මේ තරහ ගියාම අපි තරහ ගිය පුද්ගලයාට එයා කරපු මේ අවුරුදු 50ක විතර උඩ උන දෙයක් ගැන මතක් කරනවා. ඔයා මතකද අපි කෝඩියේ පන්තියේ ඉන්නකොට ඔයා එදා මට ලන්ච් එක දුන්නේ දැන් අවුරුදු 60යි මේ දෙන්නට. හැබැයි මේ කෝඩියේ පන්තියේ එක්කෙනෙක් මෙයාට සෑන්ඩ්විච් එකක් දුන්නේ නැති කියන තාම පුන කියනවා. But this person who didn't give the sandwich had done so many positive things to this person over the years. හැබැයි ඒවා මතකයි. අර එකක් අරගෙන අරකම කියනවා පුන කියනවා තරහවත් වැඩි වෙනවා අනවශ්‍ය වචන පිට වෙනවා. So one way in which we can conduct in our relationships is, even if you do feel angry at somebody, not to bring in the past of what that person has done. Other thing is not to bring in other issues. So for example, say you have a conflict with your co-worker because that person has not been giving in the project reports on time, which means that you are under stress because that person is not delivering the goods. Talk about that issue, not about the issue that they didn't take up your invitation to come to your birthday party last year. But ඒක කිසිසේත්ම අදාළ නැහැ නේ. මෙතන කතා කරන්නේ ප්‍රොජෙක්ට් එක පරක්කුණක් ගැන. අර මිනිස්සු වගේ බර්ත්ඩේ පාටි එකට අපියක් ගැන නෙවෙයි මෙතන අදාළ. But many times අපි තරහ ගියාම අපි මේ වගේ විදියට හැසිරෙනවා සම්බන්ධතාව වල. ඒතර තරහව ගියාට පස්සේ අනවශ්‍ය වචන මාලාවක් පිට වෙලා සම්බන්ධකම් නැත්තට නැති වෙලා යනවා. Another way in which we can live and work and be in our relationships is to forgive people. So the සමහර අය ඉන්නවා we සමාව දෙන්න පුළුවන් නමුත් ඒ පුද්ගලයාත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධකමක් ආයමසෙන් ඇති කරගන්න බෑ. For example, if you were in an abusive relationship, say you had a partner or a friend or a parent who was physically or emotionally or sexually abusive towards you, certainly you cannot get into a relationship with that person because ඒ පුද්ගලයා ආයමසලක් ඔබට හානි කරන්න පුළුවන් නිසා. නමුත් ඒ පුද්ගලයාට සමාව දෙන්නවයි කියන්නේ ඔබගේ මනස හීලෑ කරගන්න එක. ඒක මෙන්න වටිනාකම. දැන් සමහර අය ඉන්නේ බද්ධ වෛර කියලා. පරම්පරාවෙන් පරම්පරාවට පෞල් තරහ වෙලා. දැන් මේ ළඟදී අවුරුදු කීපයකදී මම දන්න කෙනෙක් ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ මේ වත්තක ලොකු වත්තක අරගලයකට උපදේශයක් ගන්න මට ආවා. මේ කතා කරනකොට මට තේරුණා මේ වත්තේ ඉන්නේ නෑදෑයෝ. හැබැයි නෑදෑයෝ පිළිබෙදිලා. People are not talking to each other. So this chap is also in one group and huge some land issue. So I asked them I was very interested. I said, what is the reason that me Achi ammat ek kata karanne, me nenda mamat ek kata karanne? What is the reason? This chap didn't even know. He said this this is the 4th generation of relatives not talking to each other and they don't even know where it started. That is the problem of not forgiving. So you can forgive, but certainly you don't have to go back to a relationship, but you can forgive so that you can move on in life without keeping these remnants in your head. අනිත් එක තමයි දැන් අපි ක්‍රමවේද කීපයක් කතා කරා ඔබගේ සිතන ක්‍රමය. This is the 8th strategy of anger management. Check your thinking style. When සමහර අය ඉන්නවා the way they look at the world, the way they look at other people, the way they look at themselves are distorted. මම එක උපමාවක් කියන්න. We have this normal eyes which we can look at in the daytime and see. But I think I want to get a pair of brown sunglasses. So I put my brown sunglasses and it looks a little bit browny, soothing to the eye, but brown. I don't see the green very much. Another person says, I don't want a brown sunglass, I want a very, very dark, kind of a blackish sunglass. Yeah, ඒක දැම්මහම තවත් කළු වෙලා තමයි පේන්නේ. තව කෙනෙක් කියනවා, I don't want brown or black, I want a pink pair of sunglasses, a pink lens. එයා එළියට බලනකොට රෝස පාට වෙලා පේන්නේ. එහෙනම් හැබැයි ඇත්තටම යථාර්ථය පේන්නේ කවුද? මොන sunglass එකක්වත් දාපු නැති කෙනෙකුට. Likewise, there are some of us who are looking at the world, looking at themselves, looking at others with different shades of sunglasses. සමහර අය අනේ හරි අඳුරුයි ජීවිතේ. වැඩක් නැහැ. සමහර අය බොහොම දරුණුයි ජීවිතය. අනිත් පුද්ගලයන් අඳුරුයි, අනාගතයත් අඳුරුයි, මගේ ජීවිතයත් අඳුරුයි, ලෝකයත් අඳුරුයි, හැම එකක්ම අඳුරුයි. සමහර අය අනේ ජීවිතය තමයි ලෝකේ. රෝස පරදාක් එක්කන. So it depends. But therefore, if you can change your thinking style to be like the one who doesn't wear any sunglasses, that you see the truth for what it is, reality for what it is, then the tendency for anger to overtake you becomes so much lesser. So what are these erroneous thinking style? One is thinking in terms of should and must. I must get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. If I get up later than that, I'm a failure. My children all must pass their O-levels with flying colors. They must pass their A-levels in flying colors. I have 4 children. One must become a doctor. One must become a lawyer. One must become an engineer. One must become an accountant. Nothing else will make me happy. And the must thinking. ඒ කියන්නේ ජීවිතය දිහා මෙහෙමමයි වෙන්න ඕනේ. ගලේ කෙටුවා වගේමයි ඉන්න ඕනේ. ගලේ එහාට මෙහාට උනොත් අප්සෙට් මිනිස්සෙක් හිට. Overcoming this should, must thinking will make you more relaxed. If you have should, must thinking, your anger will start increasing. තව එකක් තමයි mind reading or jumping to conclusions. අන්න අද උදේ මගේ යාළුවා මගේ දිහා බලන්නෙත් නැතුව වෙන කෙනෙක් එක්ක තේකක් බොන්න ගියා කැන්ටිමට. How dare she? We have been good friends for 5 years and most of these 5 years both of us used to go to the canteen to have a cup of tea. But she went to the canteen with that new friend then. අලුත් යාළුවෙක් හොයාගෙන ඇති. බලන්න මේ ගෑණි. Now your mind reading, your friend thinking that she has found a new friend and you have jumped the conclusion that she has dumped you and gone off with this new friend. lunch වෙලාවේදී මේ යාළුවෝ ඔයත් එක්ක කතා කරන්න වෙනවා. පුස්පාට් එකක් දාලා කියනවා දැන් අර මතකුනේ අද දැන් මම මතකුනේ දැන්ද? And යාළුවා very innocent say මොකද්ද මේ? උදේ තේ එකක් එහෙම බොන්න ආවේ නෑ නේ මගෙත් එක්ක. And then the යාළුවා tells you, do you know so and so? The girl I spoke to, her mother has just been diagnosed with a very severe illness. She was so unhappy. She was crying at her desk. I told her, let's come and have a cup of tea and let me talk to you about it. ඒ හේතුව නිසා තමයි මම උදේ අත් එක තේ එකක් බිව්වේ. අපිට අනන්තවත් එහෙම වෙලා තියෙනවානේ. Where we have mind read somebody, jumped into conclusions, and then to realize it's so totally way off. When you get into the habit of mind reading, rather than asking that person, අපි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අහන්නේ නැහැ කට්ටියගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇති වුණාම අපේම නිගමනයට අරගෙන ඒකත් එක්ක ඉන්නවා. නමුත් මානසික සෞඛ්‍ය තියෙන කෙනෙක් they go and ask, did I do something wrong to you? I didn't see you wanting to have a cup of tea with me. Is everything okay? ලස්සනට අහගම යථාර්ථය ඉදි කරගන්න පුළුවන්. Another maladaptive thinking style is blaming others for your problems. නේ මගේ කරිය එක හරි ගියේ නැත්නම් මගේ තාත්තා නිසා. I have got this illness because my mother didn't give me enough green leaves when I was a young person. My hair isn't growing properly because of this particular shampoo. It may be the shampoo, it may be something else. My goodness, I missed the bus because why? There was a rain and thunderstorm in the night. Never looking at yourself as a contributor to a problem. That doesn't mean that all your problems are because of you. But many times a problem occurs because of so many factors, and one of them could be you, isn't it? ඔබත් හේතු සාධකයක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් නේ ඔබගේ ජීවිතයේ ගැටලුවට. අපිට කියන්න බෑනේ අපි සර්ව සම්පූර්ණයි. මගේ ජීවිතයේ තියෙන හැම ගැටලුවක් සෞඛ්‍ය සම්පන්න ප්‍රශ්න මගේ මුදල් ප්‍රශ්න වලට මගේ relationships issues වලට හේතු අනිත් අය කියලා. So if you off that stand where you blame others for your problem, that's also a erroneous thinking style. So therefore, before we go on to questions, I like to just summarize what we spoke about. අද අපි සාකච්ඡා කරේ මේ webinar එකේ තරහව පිළිබඳව. බැලුවත් තරහව ඇත්තටම වටිනා දෙයක්ද නැද්ද? අපි නිගමනය වුණේ කිසිසේත් වටිනාකමක් නැති දෙයක් කියලා. ඒතර අපි කතා කරා තරහව යන්නේ හේතුව මොනවද? හේතුන් මොනවද? පසු අපි සාකච්ඡා කරා තරහව පාලනය කරගන්නේ මැනේජ් කරන්නේ කොහොමද? පළවෙනි එක තමයි අපි තරහ පාලනය කරගන්න ඕනෑකමක් තියෙනවා. ඒක නැත්නම් ඉදිරි කටට යන්න බෑ. ඊට පස්සේ අපි කතා කරා සිහියෙන් ජීවත් වෙන එක. තරහවට ඇත්ත හේතුව මොකක්ද කියලා බලන එක. Then we spoke about personal warning signs of your anger. Then we looked at triggers, external triggers for your anger. Then we looked at walking away from your anger as an anger management strategy. Then we looked at box breathing. Then we looked at how we can conduct our relationships better. And then we changing our thinking style. So that is my talk to you today for this webinar on anger management. Thank you very much. Can't hear, Jamo.
Thank you very much, Professor Pianjali, for sharing those very, very valuable insights, information, and knowledge with us. And most importantly, what kind of occurred to me was that you shared part of your life story and incidents that really honestly happened to you, and also made us also understand how our lives also can be affected with little incidents and situations that you brought out so wonderfully. So thank you so much. It was really, really rewarding for me, and I'm sure for everybody else, especially about the triggers that we should be aware of of impending anger. Thank you again. There are a couple of questions. Would you mind me asking them from you now?
Yes.
One person asked, sometimes we get anger over strangers even before knowing them.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It could be, Jamo, several reasons. One is that stranger might remind you of somebody you knew before. Say, for example, if you had a parent who was really nasty to you and abused you, then later on in life, you have a boss like that or a co-worker. So this boss and co-worker is some innocent party. But they are dakinapuru matak wenna ara taattawa. Ara taattage anger එක මෙයාට project වෙන්න පුළුවන්. That could be one reason.
Okay.
Second is a stranger might be actually conducting in ways that goes against your personality. උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් something that kind of irritates me is when people move slowly in a pavement or near a supermarket aisles, because I'm usually very onto it, you know. But then there you see these people who are like with their cart and looking at the various chocolates and nobody can pass them. So that is a personal point for me. I know that it's a trigger. So that can, you know, it can be a trigger point. So ඒ වගේ triggers තියෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. එතකොට අපි තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ මගේ දෙන්නේ trigger එකක් activate වෙගෙන එන්නේ. So කාරුණිකව යාට කියනවා can you kindly take your thing to a side කියලා අපි යනවා. එහෙම වෙන්නත් පුළුවන් ජම.
Okay, thank you very much. There's another one. There are 2 points really that they want addressed. How to deal with guilt caused by anger and isolating yourself and hibernating for a long time till you feel better. Is it good or bad?
Guilt is actually extremely detrimental emotional state. It's like the rust which eats its own metal. The iron එක deteriorate වෙන්නේ එයාගෙන් ඇතුළේ rust එක එන්නේ. වෙන එකක් නිසා නෙවෙයිනේ. Iron is a very strong element. Sorry, a metal. එහෙනම් මේ guilt එක one has to really overcome it. It's tough, especially if as a child, your parents made you feel guilty and now guilt is your operating mechanism of your life. AQ guilt එකට ඉඩ දෙන්න එපා. Now උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් I spoke about living in the present moment. That is a wonderful strategy to overcome guilt, where when you see the thoughts of guilt coming, I shouldn't have said that. For so many years, I was abusive towards that person. Why was I like that? ඔන්න එනවනේ පටන් ගන්නවා කතාව වගේ මනසේ. When that happens, don't talk to those parts of your mind. Don't dialogue with those thoughts. Just let those thoughts just flow. I'll give you an analogy. If you are in a train station and you're watching trains come by, you see a bullet train. You see an engine only. You see the Yal Devi coming. You see a multicolored train coming. Now, you are not going to think, was this bullet train given by the Japanese government to the Sri Lankan government? Why is the Yal Devi coming to Maradana? Will it come to fort? Living in the present moment is also like that. When you get thoughts of guilt coming to you, note that it has come, but don't dialogue with it. Don't discuss with it. Don't have a dialogue with your own thought. It will only grow the guilt. When you, on the other hand, just keep looking at the guilt, with time it will go away. That's one of the strategies. I think there's another question.
Yes, Professor, can I repeat it to you?
Yeah.
Isolating yourself and hibernating for a long time till you feel better, is it good or bad?
Isolating, if you do personal development work, is good. But if you just close yourself up in a room and run away, that's not going to do much. So for example, people who do long-term meditation retreats, they are in isolation, they're in solitude, they're hermits. But in that hermit time life, they do a lot of self-development work, like living in the present moment, seeing all their internal demons coming up and sorting themselves out. They do what we call journaling. Even for that guilt thing, journaling is good. Journaling is where you write all what's in your mind in a book so that you kind of ventilate it out. So if you do meditation, you can do spiritual activities like prayer. So if you do all of these things in hibernation, it will be very useful. In the guidance of somebody, you also need to have a teacher to help you do this. But if you just lock yourself up or you take yourself to Sumithrayo and stay there for 2 months in a hut without doing any mind work, it won't be beneficial.
Thank you, Professor, for that very detailed answer to those 2 points. There's another one. I get really angry when driving in traffic, like when people cut the line, etc. How can it be controlled? Driving is not something I can stop doing also. But when I do drive, then I go to my destination very annoyed.
Yeah. So again, I can connect with that because I'm also very orderly and stuff, and jumping doesn't really make me feel wonderful. So what I do is I'm always aware of my reaction. Again, I practice present moment awareness, and I encourage you to do so too. So this particular person, if you can go on the internet and read about mindfulness or take on a meditation practice that inculcates mindfulness. When this happens, either in a supermarket where a trolley gets put in away, or man in the pavement doesn't move, or the next bus cuts you off, or the three-wheeler comes, or all that, the reaction to that, you can manage it by being aware of the reaction. That is mindfulness. Now, unfortunately, our webinar is not on mindfulness, but I encourage this person to really go on the internet and read up on mindfulness as a strategy to manage this issue.
Thanks, Professor. There's another question that actually connects with your answer. Regarding mindfulness, what do you say to do one thing in a moment?
Why do you say? Well, because the reason, Jomo, is that our human brain can't multitask. Though we refer to multitasking. The reason is our car talking to their child, listening to the music, and eating a sandwich. But actually, what's happening is you're then driving your car only 25% of the time. Because 25% you're with a child, 25% you're singing the song, 25% you're eating a sandwich. So that is why if you want to really strengthen your mind, you need to let go of extraneous activities and keep your mind with the predominant activity you're doing.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Another question. How can you deal with a person who is hostile even after we have asked the reason, but that it has been brushed off?
But there are people who are not easy, isn't it? I mean, unfortunately, if we can ask somebody and they tell the reason and we make amends and everybody becomes beautiful, it would be a lovely place to be. But there are lots of people whose nature is to be hostile. I mean, we have heard of Hitler, who was epitome of hostility. He killed just like that 6 million people. So there are lots of people like that, not at the Hitler level, but in our day-to-day life, in our families. So if such a person is there, of course, if I can, I'll avoid. Of course, sometimes you may not be able to avoid if it's a partner, a sibling, even a child, because you're so close. Then spending less amount of time with this person as much as possible would be a way, because you can't dump this person also. But if you have a choice, say it's a friend, you don't have to meet this person. You can just avoid. Avoidance would be the one.
Thanks, Professor. Another interesting question. My client is a victimized mother where the daughter accuses her for getting her married to a man without a strong mind. How can the mother overcome this situation as the daughter who is divorced gets angry and keeps on scolding the mother? Thank you so much and wish you success always.
I think that's a little bit of an individual question, isn't it, Jomo? Because if it's a client and all, we might need more background information, which we don't have. So I'm afraid that if I give a wrong answer, it won't be useful.
I know. So maybe she can call Sumithrayo and speak and talk more in. I think she needs to talk.
Yeah, and have some peer supervision on the client.
Okay, thank you. Another one, when someone disturbs me while I'm concentrating on something, I get angry. Then I cannot manage what I was doing at the first place.
Yeah, so, these things happen. As I told you, anger is there. It's an inherent human emotion. So if somebody disturbs you, then you might get cheesed off. That's your predominant way of reacting. Not everybody who gets disturbed get angry also. You do. Then again, now we have spoken about various anger management strategies, starting with present moment awareness. You can practice some of those.
Yes. Okay, Professor, I think that's about the questions that have come in the Q&A. Thank you very much for answering them in so much of detail. And I think there's one more here. I'm sorry. Can you suggest any instant anger? I think you have already mentioned it, but maybe you can refresh the person.
Yeah, instant anger is obviously somebody who is absolutely not in the present moment, isn't it? That's why it's so instantaneous. When you say instant anger, what happens, I understand, is that you don't even know it has come because it's brought up so immediately that, and you have acted on it. That's why you call instant. Now, some people know, they know the development and before it becomes outburst. But for some people, it comes so rapidly, the only thing they see is the outburst. So now I told you when I was in my younger years, it was like that for me. But with the practice of the strategies I told you, particularly the eye opener, that this is not the way I want to live, and present moment awareness practice, now even before I could feel the anger emotion, I could feel the physiological changes, which is the extent you can. So practice these techniques that we spoke about.
Yes, thanks, Professor. So we are coming to the close of our very, very interesting webinar with Professor Pianjali. A gentle reminder of our next webinar, which we assure you will this one and also the ones before. If you or a loved one or a friend is in distress and needs emotional support, please do contact Sumithrayo at the contact details shown in your screen. Remember, this is a free service. As we close, I would like to convey a big thank you to all of you who found the time and the need to participate in this webinar. Your presence is inspiring. Thank you to Professor Pianjali D'Souza for finding the time to be on our panel today and for imparting to us her very, very valuable knowledge and experience. Thank you very much, Professor Pianjali. And finally, a big thank you to all these volunteers at our center who are working tirelessly to make all of these webinars happen. As I've said before, this is no easy task during a lockdown and a pandemic, and Sumithrayo really appreciates all of their inputs. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Dr. Pianjali, again.
Thank you, Jomo. Thank you, Sumithrayo.